Okay, my name's Bill Hargreaves. I went to sea a long time ago, sailed as and rank it up to the rank of master, tankers and gas carriers. A couple of years with the MCA, and for 28 years I was a Southampton pilot. At the end of 2020, right in the middle of the lockdown, I took early retirement from pilotage, and now I restrict myself to some consultancy work, teaching on the academic courses and teaching at the Man Model Centre in Timsbury near Southampton. We live on a very small island, and yet you'd be surprised how many people don't realise how much comes by sea. The UK is not self-sufficient. None of the world is self-sufficient, and we all need stuff from other parts of the world. And the most cost-effective, the most environmentally sound way to transport it is by sea, and that's why it really matters. Like the rest of the world, when it first hit, nobody was quite sure what was going to happen and how virulent it was going to be and what effect it was going to have on society and the maritime world. We went into, in fact, the port went into lockdown before the country went into lockdown. No access to VTS, everybody in their little silos, masks, obviously. One master apologized to me for wearing his boiler suit because he said, well, I don't see anybody anymore. The only person that comes aboard is the pilot. We do everything remotely, you know, and the whole world has discovered, as we're doing just now, that sort of electronic media, you don't need to be there in person for a lot of jobs. I boarded the ship and they'd filled out, this is sort of May time, and they'd filled out their protocol, their questionnaire, and yes, they've had COVID on board and blah, blah, blah. Yes, they'd had deaths on board, blah, blah, blah. So I was asked if I wanted to volunteer to bring the ship into Southampton. Southampton, I'll be in fairness to Southampton, they were very, very good in COVID. They during the early days of COVID, they didn't just put a blanket no on things. They just said, well, we need to do this, and with the port health. Anyway, I boarded this ship in full COVID gear, so I had the CSI New York boiler suit on, forensic boiler suit on, and I had overshoes, and I had gloves, and I had a mask, and I had the hood up, so there was hardly any of my flesh being exposed. And it didn't help when I got on board the ship because, and that's something else about the COVID pandemic, a lot of the elevators on vessels are out of bounds because they've been deep cleaned. You've got to take the stairs. So after 10 flights of stairs or whatever it was, I was definitely puffing and huffing, especially with all this gear on. I walked onto the wheelhouse and there was the old man with his mask on and the captain with his mask on and nothing else. And he looked at me and I looked at him, and he says, you do know, he said, that the COVID outbreak we had was 3 months ago. We've been at sea for 3 months. In the initial months, it was quite understandable that people overran their contracts. I mean, it's quite a few ships. It was like 2 months on, 2 months off, and they were there for 4 or 5 months, which is understandable. But November, I boarded a container ship. I was leaving a container ship, and the chief officer took me to the accommodation ladder, and he had a very haunted look, shall we say? And everything all right, chief? And he says, I've been here for 14 months. And he says, I don't know when I'm going home. And November 2020, there was no excuse for getting people off the ship. The protocols were in place at that stage. So it was, I'm afraid, companies taking advantage of a very nasty situation. Be sensitive to the thoughts of the other person. A pilot, especially boarding a ship, is coming from an uncontrolled atmosphere, an uncontrolled environment to a controlled environment. The ship may be very apprehensive about this pilot bringing, also, as you mentioned before, about bringing all these sort of diseases and one specific disease on board. So I would just be sensitive to the feelings of the other seafarers.